Welcome to the first in our series of videos about the Cambridge First exam. Today we're going to look at the multiple choice cloze use of English task. This is part 1 of the exam. In the reading and use of English paper you only have an hour and 15 minutes. Most of that time will probably go on the reading part of the paper, so it's important that you can move quickly through the use of English exercises. So we'll start by looking at an example of the multiple choice cloze. Before you have a look, I'm going to give you a couple of tips that might help when you're approaching this task. And the first of these is to think about what the test is about. The test is going to be looking at your knowledge of phrasal verbs, for example. So you'll have a gap. If there's a preposition after the gap, you're probably looking for a phrasal verb to go in that gap. Likewise, if there's a verb and then a gap afterwards, it could be that this is part of a phrasal verb. You're also testing your understanding of shades of meaning. So, for example, there might be 4 verbs given for one of the gaps in the text, and it's your job to decide which one of these 4 fits the meaning of the sentence best. They're also testing verb patterns, thinking about what words come after particular verbs. For example, the verb like. You like to do something, you also like doing something, but you don't like do something. So we look at the gap and we think about the pattern for that verb, if it's a verb to go there. And there's also a test here of your knowledge of set expressions, things like even though, and common expressions in English. Collocations are also a very common feature of this part of the test. So when you attempt it, always read the whole sentence to see what comes before the gap and what follows the gap, because sometimes there's extra information there that's very important to you. When you've found which one you think is the right answer, read the whole sentence again and see if it sounds right. At the level of FCE, you should be able to have a good ear for language. When you read something, you hear it inside your head. If it doesn't sound right, you've probably got the wrong answer. It's best to try again. If a particular question is proving very difficult, try to take away some of the adjectives in the sentence. A lot of the time, the adjectives are there to distract you. They will be more difficult to understand than the sentence without the adjectives. They add detail to the meaning, but they don't always give you the specific meaning of a particular clause or sentence. If you take them out, it might make it easier. So, please have a look at the links in the description below. You'll need to download the PDF of the Teacher's Handbook for the Cambridge First exam. And in the PDF, I'd like you to turn to page 21. Now that's not the page 21 as it's written at the bottom of the page, this is page 21 as it appears in the PDF. So bearing in mind the tips that I've just given you, I'd like you to now pause this video and try the task. If you don't want to wait for me to check your answers with you in this video, you can look ahead a couple of pages and the answers are given there. But I don't recommend doing that because this answer sheet has answers for the whole test and it might affect what you do for the next several parts. So pause the video now and take about 10 minutes or so to try this part of the test. Okay, so let's look at the answers together for the multiple choice cloze. For number 1, we want the answer D, believed, because here we have the expression, it is believed to be the oldest leather shoe ever found. B, regarded, is quite close, but we don't use the pattern regarded to be, we use regarded as being, so we would have to change the sentence. The question that follows, number 2, the answer that we want is A, stuffed. So this is what I referred to earlier as seeing the shades of meaning between similar verbs. Yes, we could look at how a shoe is loaded with grass, but that wouldn't make much sense. Trucks can be loaded with material to take to a shop, for example. The grass could be pushed into the shoe, but we don't have that form here. And we don't want the shoe to be blocked with grass. That would make no sense. So here, it had been stuffed with grasses. Note the use of the passive. So if we look at the word it and think what that refers to, clearly it refers to the shoe. So we need to think about the relationship there between it, the shoe, and the verb that could apply. Number 3, the answer is D, certain. We want to say for certain something. We could maybe use specific if we change it to an adverb, say specifically, say clearly. The other word that would fit but isn't given as an option would of course be, say, for sure. Sure isn't an option here. The closest word to sure is certain. For number 4, we want the answer C, team. We talk about a research team, not a research company. Usually scientists work in an institution rather than a company. So we talk about the group of people who are working together as a team, much like a football team. So this is a collocation. For number 5, the word we were looking for is C, up. Here we have a phrasal verb. Shoes of this type from later periods have turned up in archaeological excavations. A lot of the words here look complicated, but we don't need them. We just need to focus on the phrasal verb here, which means to appear. For number 6, we want A, recently. We're talking about a long period of history. The 1950s are quite close to us in this long period, so we can say as recently as. The other words here don't fit. In number 7, we want the answer D, obviously. It's obviously a style. So this would be the same as saying it's clearly. Clearly isn't one of the options here. So we need to have obviously, which is the closest synonym to that. Precisely and exactly don't fit because the word after the gap is A. It's the indefinite article. When we use exactly and precisely, we are being more specific. So we would say the. If we said it's the style, then exactly and precisely would be better options. And finally, in number 8, we're looking for C, remained. It remained popular for thousands of years. We're looking for a word that means the same as stayed popular or continued to be popular. Remained fits that. Lasted doesn't fit, option D, because then we would be describing the popularity. Its popularity lasted for thousands of years. So hopefully you did quite well there. Remember that the pass mark overall is 60%. So you need to get 6 out of or 5 out of 8 here, and that will put you on track for a pass. If you're hoping for a B grade, that would be 75% and upwards, and A grade is 80% and upwards. But if you remain focused on this kind of task, this is the sort of place where you can pick up quite a lot of points in the use of English paper. Okay, so I hope that helped and that you'll be joining me again very soon for part 2, where we look at the open close.